All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm very excited to be here. I'm Dr. Rosa Rivera McCutcheon. I'm a professor at Lehman College, and I've had the pleasure of working with Jamaal for the past 8 years. I met him when the first of many of his teachers went through my school leadership program at Lehman, and as their professor, I had to meet with their supervisor, Jamaal. And as someone who's committed to social justice and equity, I was already intrigued by the school's name. I mean, Cornerstone Academy for Social Action Middle School. And I wondered, is this leader someone whose commitments to social justice go beyond a name? And I just thought it was a name. And I walked in there and I started talking to Jamaal, and I was not at all disappointed. And so usually my conversations with principals last for about 20 minutes. It's kind of cursory. Hi, how are you? I'm supervising this person, how they're doing. But Jamaal and I talked for about 2 hours about the state of schools and what it meant in particular for Black and brown kids. And those 2 hours were peppered throughout many interruptions from kids and staff, because that's what happens when you're an engaged school leader. And his message throughout that time about social justice was unfaltering. And I knew then that this was a leader whose commitment to issues of equity for our kids and our communities was central to our schools. And over the years, I've studied Jamaal's leadership and published 3 research articles that are out there in some of the most prestigious journals in education in the country. And we've worked together on quite a few initiatives, but 2 stick out for me. The first was in the fall of 2014 when, after the grand jury failed to indict Eric Garner's murderer, Jamaal organized 10 middle school principals to bring together their staff members to an education conference that was focused on race and the movement for Black lives. The result was that hundreds of educators and community organizers engaged in difficult conversations about race and racism. And just as importantly, it was a day of planning for future action, because Jamaal, as we know, is all about action. And nothing like this had been done before in the Bronx. The second incident that kind of stands out in my mind was a town hall meeting that we held for Bronx parents at Lehman College, where he and other folks that we invited talked to them about their right to opt out of high-stakes tests. Do you remember that one? Yes. So even though the powers that be in the Department of Education had made it crystal clear that they did not want teachers and principals talking about all that was wrong with the tests, Jamaal kept it real for those folks. And he made it clear that he wasn't anti-standards or that he wasn't about lowering expectations. But he knew that these tests were really stifling our schools, and it was stifling the brilliance of Black and brown kids in particular. Again, Jamaal made it plain. And so you see, Jamaal embodies an idea about leadership that I call radical care, which is about a fierce love for our kids, our families, our communities, and being active in a fight for what's right for all of us, even when the establishment tells you to stay in line and to stay in your lane. I've seen Jamaal at work doing one of the toughest jobs there is, and he's proven to me that he's the kind of leader that cannot and will not tolerate injustice. And I am so very excited to continue to work with Jamaal, and even more excited that he's running in my district and that I get to vote for him. So I want to take this opportunity now to invite to the podium Zephyr Teachout, who is a law professor at Fordham, and has been endorsed in prior races by the New York Times, and is a phenomenal leader in her own right.
Woo, thank you. Thank you. Woo, woo. Yeah. Well, that was absolutely beautiful. Every time that I get to see Jamaal speak, whether it's in person or online, I get so excited about the idea of him in Congress.
Yeah.
And you just got me even more excited.
Woo!
So I am really proud to be here today to endorse future Congressman Bowman. Woo!
Yeah!
And I am wearing my Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez dress.
Yes!
In May of the last congressional cycle, I endorsed her in front of a much smaller podium with a much smaller crowd. There was one reporter there who wanted to talk about Trump's real estate deals. And now today, we have seen why we do not just need Democrats in Congress, we need amazing Democrats in Congress. If she wasn't in Congress, would we have the Green New Deal?
No.
If she wasn't in Congress, those questions that she sits and asks with such precision to the most powerful people in the country who have gotten used to getting away with saying nothing and revealing the truth of the nature of power and race and money in our country just by doing her job is the strongest argument for why we should not settle anymore for people with a D next to their name who voted for the Iraq War, and instead support hardworking, visionary candidates who can transform the office. And we all know we are missing something in Congress right now. We are missing public school educators. We are missing people, it's not going to be Betsy DeVos for long. But I do imagine, like, what if it was Congressman Bowman right now? I love imagining Congressman Bowman taking on Betsy DeVos. But the truth is, we know that Betsy DeVos didn't come out of nowhere. And too many Democrats got on board with privatization, with high-stakes testing, and with a vision that basically treats kids like widgets instead of understanding their deep humanity. And we need to change the Democratic Party and this country on education. It is an embarrassment that New York State has among the most segregated school districts in the country. It is an embarrassment that we have so many schools in your district without any place to play. That's just proof that we are treating kids not like humans, but like some little number. Who among us wants to raise children who don't have time to play, who don't have art, who don't have music, who don't have access to the things that make us human? So I really, this is my first endorsement of this 2020 congressional cycle. And I am here because I can't wait for Congressman Bowman's representation of this district, but I gotta be honest, we need him for the entire country. And he has gotten, when we sat down to meet, we were talking about race a couple years ago, and I left that meeting so full of the electricity of his ideas. You know that feeling? And wanting to find a way in which his leadership could be made real. I mean, it already is real, but where he could bring his leadership to the national stage. And we need that leadership on the national stage. So I speak not only to the people of this district. People in this district, you've got an educator first who's going into politics because there's a crisis, not because of personal political ambition. He's responding to real need and a real absence. But people in this country, too. Remember what AOC has done. Remember what these incredible new congresswomen and men have done. And then look right here, because I can't wait until 2 years from now, when we are transforming federal education policy, because it is the top-down that is pushing out our schools. It is not just state-level work. It is top-down problems with a testing regime that just keeps changing names, but not changing the basic theory that kids aren't worth our time and love and energy. So it is such an honor that I endorse and introduce your future congressman. And I want to give him the love of the lucky dress. So give me your hand, because we've got victory in the future. Jamaal Bowman.
Thank you, Zephyr. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rosa. I want to start just by saying, Rosa, I love you dearly. When we met 8-9 years ago, it felt like a transformative moment in my life, and I'm happy we were able to collaborate and work together and be co-conspirators in a movement to transform education and communities for our kids. Zephyr, I felt the same electricity after meeting you a year ago now, probably a year ago, in that restaurant in the South Bronx. I felt the same electricity. I'm not going to say what you told me to do then. It was crazy. I'm happy I didn't listen to you. But it's the fire, it's the passion, it's the vigor, it's the relentlessness that Zephyr has, that Rosa has, that so many of you have, that brought us here together today. When I started teaching, it was love at first sight. I fell in love with the profession. I fell in love with the work every day. My colleagues were smart, hardworking, and dedicated, and the kids came to school every day full of life and ready to learn. The parents, despite what you may be told, really care about education and were always present and engaged when we needed them to be in our schools. Despite all of this positive energy and positive opportunity, however, I noticed early on in my career that the education system was flawed, was broken, and did not do what it needed to do to meet the needs of our kids. Class sizes were as large as 35. Books were non-existent within decrepit buildings. And the curriculum was not responsive to the needs of the students or the community. During my first 5 years in education, I had 5 different school leaders, 5 different school principals. Imagine how that instability overburdened the teachers and hurt the learning and well-being of the students in the building. This was a community of poverty, and the students were overwhelmingly Black, Latinx, and immigrant. I then transitioned to work in a high school where I spent the next 3 years of my career. Classes were still overcrowded, resources were still scarce, and the curriculum was still left much to be desired. What made matters worse was this was a scanning school, which meant that students had to walk through metal detectors every day before getting to their classes. Part of my job as the dean of students was to monitor scanning and capture students who were late to first period class in the cafeteria. I hated this job. I felt more like a cop than an educator. We were criminalizing students for the simple act of existing. Every day I became more enraged by this. And once again, the kids were mostly poor, Black, Latinx, and immigrant. Right across the street, at the mostly white LaGuardia High School, children can come and go as they please. There were no metal detectors, there was no criminalization. This was a tale of 2 school systems. This was a tale of 2 Americas. What I saw during my first few years in education wasn't just a broken education system. It was America's history of racism and inequality manifesting in our public schools and in the neighborhoods that my students came from. This was bigger than a failing education system. This was a political and economic system that continued to fail poor, Black, Latinx, and immigrant children. Our children were being legislated out of the American dream. I decided to harness my rage and channel it toward the dream of opening a new school. I started with a single composition notebook, which turned into about 10 or 20. I started writing ideas about a school that used New York City as a classroom, that was racially and economically integrated, where students learned the power of their voice and how to act upon the world to change it, where culture and the arts permeated every aspect of the school. These ideas turned into a proposal that I submitted to the New York City Department of Education, and in 2009, Casa Middle School was born. I opened the middle school because I saw a system failing our kids. So I wanted to create and lead an innovative middle school in a community mostly ignored by our elected officials. I did this to empower our students with the understanding of their unlimited potential and historical greatness. I wanted Black children to know that their history didn't start with slavery, I wanted them to know that their history started in ancient Egypt, and it was their ancestors that helped to build the pyramids. And we had tremendous success. We had tremendous success as a school building over the years. But reality continued to hit me in the face. The kids and families we serve live in some of the most harshest conditions. Our poorest communities are considered food deserts. Many live in homeless shelters and debilitated public housing. Guns and drugs are part of their daily reality, and in many cases, mental health and addiction challenges are an epidemic. Some children experience toxic stress at the hands of their families who are simply repeating the behaviors that were done to them. What's worse is my students are blamed for their conditions when it is our elected leaders who should be held accountable.
That's right.
My education colleagues and I would talk about these issues all the time, but we felt powerless to deal with them. And when we tried to work with elected officials on these issues, they lacked a vision and sense of urgency to get things done. Unlike us, they didn't experience the struggle of our kids every day. So we started partnering with grassroots organizations to inform and mobilize parents and teachers to action. We partnered with AQE to fight for increased education funding, which resulted in record education spending. We partnered with NICEAP to defeat Common Core and end the harmful practices of tying teacher evaluations to standardized test scores. We partnered with Bronx Legal Services to fight for legislation that will ensure every teacher in New York State be trained in trauma-informed practices. We worked with the Coalition for Education Justice to fight for culturally responsive training and curriculum for all New York City schools. And we continue to defeat the school-to-prison pipeline through partnerships with New Settlement Houses, Teachers Unite, and many others. And that's just a few examples of how we've taken our activism beyond the school walls. The transformative leadership our children and families needed could not exist within the public education vacuum. And our work had to stretch beyond the school walls. Our work had to stretch into the community and across the country. This is not just about helping a few hundred kids at CASA. This is about helping thousands of kids across the district and millions of kids across the country. This is about giving every child what they need, regardless of background and experiences. This is about creating school and community environments for all children to thrive, both here and abroad. This is why I'm running for office, to continue the collaborative leadership movement that we have built in education beyond the walls of our school, to right the wrongs of political neglect and engage everyone in the process. Yeah! My opponent, Elliot Engel, has been in office for 30 years. This is the leadership he cannot provide and has never provided. While he talks about being a progressive, my work in education has been progressive leadership in action. While I continue to work and worship with my students and families, he remains out of touch with the people he's supposed to represent. While he continues to be funded by real estate corporate PACs, we have a housing crisis right here in the district. While an addiction epidemic exists within our district, Elliot Engel's campaign is funded by big pharmaceutical companies. While we work and learn from college students, male, female, and non-binary, he tells our young female scholars to smile more when he is asked a question he is not comfortable with. We need a transformative leader who can engage and inspire toward a transformative democracy. Elliot Engel is not and has never been that leader. The time is now. The time is now to engage everyone in our democracy, to bridge the gaps between black and white, Jewish, Christian, and Muslim, our elders and our youth, the rich, working class, and the poor, to create a district that models the full potential of our nation. This is how we defeat Trump and our corrupt and racist system once and for all. We build a movement that includes everyone. We invest in schools, community centers, museums, environment, housing, jobs, and healthcare. We center our humanity and close the camps at the border. We rebuild the nations we have destroyed in the Middle East, Central America, and all over the globe. We use our wealth and our strength not to destroy nations, but to bring clean water, food, clothing, and shelter to everyone on this planet. This is the movement we are building. This is what this campaign is all about. This is why I am running for office. Let's come together and get this done. Thank you all so much for coming. So I know we have a couple of journalists who are here. We're going to take questions like this, or I'll meet with them on the side. Campaign manager steps in.
Thank you everybody for showing up today. This means a lot. We're so early right now. We have 8 months still to go. Am I doing the math right? I can't even keep track of that. And we're doing incredible. As you all may have seen, the polls recently, we are in striking distance of Elliot Engvall. He's the head of Foreign Relations Committee. He can't even, he hasn't interacted with his community, and now the community is out. And they are, and Dr. Bowman's catching fire. So thank you all for showing up today on this very cold day. And we hope to engage with you as time goes on, all right?
Thank you once again. Please, I want everyone to meet each other. We have New Rochelle in the house. We have Park City in the house. We have Brooklyn in the house. Southbrook, everyone's in the house. But I want you all to meet each other and connect. Because once again, this is a movement for all of us, by all of us. I so appreciate you. I love you all. Schools not bombs. Zephyr for Bowman. Opt out of standardized testing. This is a movement of love. Time for economic justice. This is a movement of love, a campaign of love. Uplift humanity. Thank you all so much.